Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I am sharing with you one of the most chilling true stories I have ever encountered. This is a tale of an inexplicable prophecy that turned one person's entire life upside down and left them counting down the days with growing terror. This account comes directly from someone who had a chance encounter with a stranger that would haunt every waking moment for years to come. This is not fiction or some internet creepypasta designed to give you a quick scare. This is an authentic account from a real person who is still living with the weight of what they were told. To protect their privacy, some names and locations have been changed, but the terrifying core of this experience remains exactly as it happened. We all know we are going to die someday. That is the one certainty every human being shares. But what would happen to you if someone told you the exact date? What would you do with that knowledge? And what if everything they predicted along the way started coming true? If you're new here, make sure to subscribe to GRIMPINE for regular true horror content that will burrow into your mind and refuse to leave. Hit that notification bell so you never miss when we uncover the unexplainable darkness hiding in ordinary moments. This happened 6 years ago when I was 24 years old. My name is Sarah Mitchell, and I was living in a small apartment in Columbus, Ohio, working as a nurse at a busy downtown hospital. I had always considered myself a rational person. Science and logic were my foundations. I did not believe in psychics or fortune tellers or anything supernatural. Death was something I dealt with professionally, not something I feared in any mystical way. I saw people pass away at the hospital regularly, and I understood it as a biological process, nothing more. That worldview shattered on an ordinary Tuesday afternoon in March. I had just finished a brutal 12-hour shift, and I was exhausted in a way that made my bones ache. All I wanted was to get home and collapse into bed. I stopped at a small coffee shop near my apartment to grab something to help me stay awake for the short drive home. The place was mostly empty except for a few people working on laptops. I ordered my usual and stood by the counter waiting. That is when he approached me. He was an older man, maybe in his late 60s, with thinning gray hair and pale, watery eyes. He was dressed in ordinary clothes, just a brown jacket and dark pants, nothing remarkable at all. He could have been anyone's grandfather. He walked up to me and stood uncomfortably close, closer than any stranger should. Before I could step back or say anything, he spoke. He said my name, my full name, first, middle, and last, spoken in a quiet, calm voice like he was reading it off a list. I had never seen this man before in my life. I was not wearing a name tag, and I had paid with cash, so there was no credit card for him to have glimpsed. I asked him how he knew my name, and he just smiled gently like I had asked something amusing. Then he said the words that changed everything. He told me I was going to die on October 15th, 2031. He said it so matter-of-factly, the same way you might tell someone the time or give directions to the nearest gas station. Just a simple statement of fact delivered with absolute certainty. I laughed nervously because I did not know what else to do. I asked if this was some kind of joke or prank. He shook his head slowly and said it was not a joke. He said he was sorry to be the one to tell me, but he thought I deserved to know. He said most people wander through life pretending they have forever, but I would have the gift of knowing exactly how much time remained. Then he told me 3 things that would happen before that date. He said my mother would be diagnosed with cancer within 2 years, but she would survive. He said I would find a letter hidden in my childhood home that would reveal a secret my family had kept from me my entire life. And he said I would have a daughter with red hair, even though no one in my family had red hair. I stood there frozen as he recited these predictions. My coffee was ready, but I could not move to grab it. The barista called my order twice before giving up and setting it on the counter. The old man watched me with those pale eyes the entire time, patient and calm like he had all the time in the world. When he finished speaking, he simply nodded once, turned around, and walked out of the coffee shop. By the time I recovered enough to follow him, he was gone. I stepped outside and looked up and down the street, but there was no sign of him anywhere. He had vanished like he had never existed at all. I drove home in a daze and told myself it was nothing, just a crazy person who happened to guess my name somehow. Maybe he had seen me at the hospital and overheard someone say it. That had to be the explanation. The predictions were vague, that they could apply to anyone or never come true at all. I forced myself to forget about it and move on with my life. For about 8 months, I succeeded. Then my mother called me crying. She had been having some health problems and finally went to see a doctor. They found a tumor in her breast, cancer, exactly as the stranger had predicted. I felt the ground drop out from under me when she told me. I could not breathe, I could not speak. All I could hear was that calm, quiet voice telling me she would be diagnosed within 2 years. It had been 8 months. My mother asked if I was still there, and I managed to say yes. I told her everything would be okay, even though I suddenly was not sure anything would ever be okay again. My mother had surgery and went through chemotherapy. It was a horrible year watching her suffer through the treatment, but she survived just like the stranger said she would. When her doctor declared her cancer-free, I cried for hours, not just from relief but from terror. Because if he was right about that, what else was he right about? I tried to tell myself it was coincidence. Lots of people get cancer. It was not that unusual of a prediction. And he said she would survive, which was statistically likely for her type of cancer caught early. I was grasping at rational explanations because the alternative was too frightening to accept. 2 years after the coffee shop encounter, I went home to help my father clean out the attic. My parents were thinking about selling the house and downsizing now that us kids were all grown. I was moving boxes when I found an old shoebox tucked behind some Christmas decorations. Inside were documents and photographs I had never seen before. There was a birth certificate that was not mine. It had my birthday but a different name. There were adoption papers. There was a photograph of a young woman I did not recognize holding a baby. I confronted my parents that evening and they finally told me the truth. I was adopted. They had kept it secret my entire life because they were afraid of how I would react. The young woman in the photograph was my birth mother. She had died shortly after giving me up. A letter hidden in my childhood home that would reveal a family secret. His exact words. I stopped trying to find rational explanations after that. This stranger, whoever or whatever he was, knew things that were impossible to know. He knew my name without being told. He knew my mother would get cancer and survive. He knew about documents hidden in an attic that even I had no idea existed. And he told me the exact date I was going to die. October 15th, 2031. I had 17 years left. 17 years that now felt like a countdown on a bomb I could not defuse. I became obsessed with researching the stranger. I went back to the coffee shop multiple times hoping to see him again. I described him to the employees, but no one recognized him. I searched online for anything about people who could predict death. I found stories about prophets and psychics, but nothing that matched what I experienced. This was not a vague fortune-telling or a cold reading. This was specific, verifiable information delivered with complete certainty. I never found any trace of him. For the next few years, I lived with this knowledge hanging over me like a cloud. Some days I could almost forget about it. Other days it consumed me completely. I thought about the date constantly. October 15th, 2031. I calculated how many days remained. I watched the number shrink day by day. I started having panic attacks. I developed insomnia. I went to therapy, but I could never bring myself to tell the therapist the whole truth. How do you tell someone that a stranger prophesied your death and two of his predictions already came true? Then I met James. He was a paramedic who worked with my hospital, and we started dating after months of friendly conversation. He was kind and patient, and he made me feel safe in a way I had not felt since that day in the coffee shop. After we had been together for a year, I finally told him everything. I expected him to think I was crazy. Instead, he held me while I cried and said he believed me. He said it did not matter what some stranger said. We would face whatever came together. A year later, we were married. 2 years after that, I discovered I was pregnant. When my daughter was born, she had red hair. Neither James nor I have red hair. No one in my family or his family has red hair. The doctors said it was a recessive gene that can skip generations, extremely rare but genetically possible. I held my beautiful red-haired daughter and I wept because I knew the third prediction had come true. Everything the stranger told me had happened exactly as he said, which meant October 15th, 2031 was real. That was the day I would die. I have made my peace with it as much as anyone can. I have stopped counting the days because it only drives me insane. I focus on living instead of dying. I watch my daughter grow and I try to be present for every moment. I love my husband and I tell him so every single day. I have written letters to my daughter for her to read after I am gone, one for every birthday until she turns 18. I do not know how I will die. The stranger never told me that part. Maybe it will be an accident or an illness or something else entirely. All I know is the date. I am sharing this story now because I need someone else to know. I need someone to understand what it is like to live with this certainty. October 15th, 2031 is 8 years away as I tell you this. I will be 39 years old. My daughter will be 6. Sometimes I dream about that day. I see myself waking up in the morning knowing it is the last sunrise I will ever see. I see myself holding my daughter and my husband and trying to memorize their faces. I see the stranger from the coffee shop standing in the distance, watching with those pale, watery eyes. I do not know who he was. I do not know how he knew what he knew. I do not know why he chose me or if he has told others the same terrible truth about themselves. All I know is that he was right about everything else, and I have no reason to believe he was wrong about the date, so I live my life the best I can. I cherish every moment because I know exactly how many I have left. And I wait for October 15th, 2031, hoping somehow that the stranger was finally wrong about something, but knowing deep in my heart that he was not.